If you've ever played competitive Pokemon before, you've probably heard of the tiering system. Obviously, you have your Ubers, your OU, your UU, your RU, and then eventually your NU. Now, your NU Pokemon, which obviously stands for Never Use, are the Pokemon that get little to no shine in the upper tiers. These typically are not the worst Pokemon in the world, as they tend to be fully evolved or at least solid middle stage evolutions, so it'll be interesting to see how these Pokemon can perform in a main story playthrough. Whereas in competitive play, they might not have the tools to be successful against other really good Pokemon, but in the main story, you tend to have a little more leeway with how good you are. So Pokemon that I have associated with being really good in Nuzlockes, like Torkoal, Whiscash, Pokemon like that are fully evolved with solid stats and move pools, are sitting in the never used tier. So without further ado, we're going to get into this run and see which surprisingly good Pokemon we can get under our belt. So after painstakingly taking forever to set the clock, we head over and pick our starter, which unfortunately for us will be none of them, since none of them are ranked in the never used tier. I do like to go with Mudkip because of its potential HM usage, and after fighting the Zigzagoon, it's time to catch a whole entire slew of encounters, including 2 Wurmples, a Poochyena, a good old-fashioned Wingull, and also everybody's favorite sloth, Slackoth. So without further ado, it's time to head over to Rustboro City to take on Roxanne, the Rock-type gym leader. Of course, we have our good friend the Wingull, Reject the Beautifly, Denied the Dustox, Whatever the Poochyena, and Overlook the Slackoth. So with our 5 never-used Mons at level 15, it's time to take on Roxanne. First up is her 2 Geodudes, which go down to 2 quad-effective Water Guns, obviously from our trusty good old friend the Wingull. But next up is Nosepass. Due to its pretty good special defense, it takes less than half of a Water Gun, and a single Rock Tomb polishes off the good old-fashioned Wingull. Next up is Poochyena, and my goal here was to put out some sand attacks before switching to Beautifly, but unfortunately Nosepass trapped us in with Block. So I tried to get some flinches with Bite. Due to its Oran Berry and it also hitting through Sand Attack a bunch, it also takes down Poochyena with Rock Tomb. I bring in Beautifly next to try to set up a few Hardens to reduce the damage from quad-effective Rock Tomb. And thanks to the Sand Attack, Nosepass misses a lot. Unfortunately, he does hit us down to 12 HP. But at -3 and Rock Tomb's low accuracy, eventually he starts missing over and over and over again, allowing Reject the Beautifly through all the potions to heal up from Absorb and slowly whittle down the stupid Nosepass bit by bit. Eventually, one final Absorb gets the KO, and we have finally obtained our first gym badge. But still, we lost 2 members. Not the end of the world, as we'll try to move forward without them. Next up, I choose to take on the optional May rival battle to get a little bit more experience and also EVs on our party members. And weirdly enough, Overlook the Slackoth actually puts in some legit work here. Despite his loafing around turns, he does plenty of damage with Stab Cut, which I believe is 50 power, which is pretty good for the early game. And despite loafing around, Trico just goes for Leer and Pound, and 2 cuts get the job done. Before taking on the next gym, I fish up the best Pokemon in the world, Goldeen, who learns a grand total of 0 water moves, but could provide at least solid bulk and take a few hits, while also evolving Overlooked into Vigoroth, which is its final form due to Slacking being in UU in Generation 3, as well as Zubat, which can evolve into Golbat, which is NU in Generation 3. And without further ado, let's take on Brawly, who is going to be an absolute joke. Because of a general Nuzlocke tip, both Dustox and Beautifly quad-resist fighting, and in Dustox's case, it has a pretty solid Psychic Attack and Confusion, which can break through the bulk ups and also reflects that Meditite and Makuhita can use. So even though Makuhita here does have Reversal and also a Citrus Berry, eventually over time, despite the bulk up boosts and a lot of healing, we do eventually take down the Makuhita, picking up our second Hoenn gym badge, this time in very easy fashion. Most difficult splits in the entire game, as both May number 2 and also Wattson are very difficult. But fortunately for us, our newly caught Minun will come in clutch as she one-shots the Wingull, and also 2-shots the second Slugma, unfortunately being put to sleep with Yawn in the process. Doesn't really matter though, as when Grovyle switches in, despite him going for a Pursuit, we tank it easily before bringing in Dustox, who just takes a couple soft attacks from Grovyle and nails a couple gusts in its face, earning us an easy victory over May. While turning up to the level cap, we raise our Zubat into a Golbat and also catch an Oddish and evolve it into Gloom, giving us another resistance to Wattson. Now this battle tends to be very, very, very difficult, especially in Emerald, since he has a fully evolved Magneton and Manectric. I lead Vigoroth to try to bait a Spark instead of an Explosion, which does succeed as it only does 7 damage and does not paralyze into Gloom, allowing a second one to not do damage or paralyze either, allowing us to put it to sleep and drill it with a few Bullet Seeds. I hit 3 Bullet Seeds the first time, 2 the second time, and 4 the third time, which is perfectly enough to not let him heal the Super Potion and also get a clean knockout, while Gloom is relatively healthy. Now, this Electrike loves to get super greedy and spam Howl and Leer over and over again, and we can actually bait this especially by using Vigoroth, who has access to Bulk Up. Since Bulk Up boosts both attack and defense, he's going to boost his own attack to match our defense boosts, while also trying to nerf our own defense to help out his attack boosts. By doing this over and over again, we are allowed to get to +6 with attack and defense, and anytime he does choose to use Shockwave, which can't paralyze, we can just heal it off with Slack Off. Now we're just going for Leer over and over again, and a single stab cut drills him for the one-shot. Unfortunately, we do get paralyzed, and I can't go Pecha Berry here because I want to go Silk Scarf to be able to two-shot the Magneton. But fortunately for us, even through Parafusion, we break free and do get the two-shot. Now, Manectric goes for a Shockwave. We can survive 2 non-crits, but it doesn't matter as we break through Parafusion once more and drill him for a single one-shot cut, giving us our second straight Deathless Gym Battle. Next up in the Jagged Pass, we pick up a Fire-type Torkoal, who I mentioned in the beginning of the video as being pretty good in Nuzlocke due to its monstrous base 140 defense stat. We're also picking up a Slugma, who, let's be real, sucks. Neither of them are joining the team yet, though, as we're using our current team to take on Maxie atop Mount Chimney, who can be a pretty difficult battle if you're not prepared. I start out by breaking up my level 28 Gloom, who is in danger of over-leveling for the cap, but I don't plan on using it for the next gym leader, obviously it being a Fire-type gym. So after putting Mighty Anna to sleep, I do drill it with a few Bullet Seeds, but it's not doing much damage even with the Miracle Seed attached, and Mighty Anna does wake up pretty quick. Even after a crit, we cannot quite finish it off, and Maxie Super Potions it up. We miss an Acid, and after a bite, a second Acid is almost nothing. We switch back to Bullet Seed, which only gets a 2-hit, and Bite also crits and flinches us. Fortunately, though, we can bring in Golbat, who can take no damage from Bite almost and finish it off with 2 wing attacks, while also downing his former evolved self with a single wing attack, leading into Camerupt. Camerupt is slow as can be, so Bites get some clutch flinches, and 2 wing attacks get the job done, even through a potion thanks to a crit, earning us the right to get past Maxie, pick up the Meteorite, and take on our 4th gym leader in this challenge, being Flannery. But not before getting him a Chop, who can be really clutch. It has the Guts ability, which means that after we evolve it and pre-burn it on a wild Numble, his attack will be absolutely sky high. And also good for this is that it can learn Dig, which is super effective into Flannery's fire types. So without further ado, let's put our Machoke into the test. First up, we go for a Dig, which one-shots Numble. Burn damage is racking up, but it'll also one-shot the incoming Slugma, who just gets up a Sunny Day, which is unfortunate, but I do have a plan for the incoming Camerupt. Although Machoke is not going to be useful here as Camerupt can do some legit damage into us, I switch into Goldeen, whose only job here is to, you know, set up a Tail Whip, maybe a Supersonic, and be annoying to this Camerupt, while also taking a few overheats, which will lower Camerupt's special attack by 2 stages. Thankfully, now this Camerupt is at -4 special attack, and then I bring in my trusty old Minun here, who's been absolutely clutch as a support Pokemon. It sets up the Sun, but what my goal is here is to set up as many Charms as we can on it, bringing it to -6 attack. Now, at -6 attack and -4 special attack, we Encore it into the weak Tackle, which also has a chance to miss, before bringing in the Go Overlook the Vigoroth. As you can see, Tackle here is doing 3 damage, which allows me to set up as many bulk ups as I want. Fortunately for us here, he's doing absolutely nothing, which is funny. -4 special attack and -6 attack, and also not a great Pokemon to begin with. He doesn't even go for Overheat after a certain point. I let him just go for Tackle over and over again, which I can easily heal up with Slack Off. And after we get to +6, I just go for a Yawn to stall out a turn of the Sun, and finish up the Camerupt with a single cut. In comes Torkoal, who we do over half of the cut. He just sets up the Sun since we timed it out right, and one more cut downs the Torkoal, earning us our 4th Hoenn Gym badge in a pretty fun fashion. After that, we can pick up a Cacnea in the desert, one of our 2 Grass-type encounters in this run, before pre-poisoning our Machoke on a wild Wurmple, readying us up to take on Gym Leader Norman for the Balance Badge. First up is Spinda, who our Guts-boosted Machoke can one-shot with a Karate Chop after taking a pretty soft facade. In comes Vigoroth, and this dude survives on about 1 millimeter of HP before healing up with a Super Potion. A second Karate Chop does get the range, though, downing the Vigoroth and allowing us to go to level 31 before Lanoon comes in. This Lanoon does like to go for Belly Drum, but just to be safe, I switch into Minun as it goes for a Slash, which would have killed. It does go for Belly Drum, and after a Thunder Wave and an Encore, we lock it into Belly Drum, allowing us to finish it off with a few Sparks. Norman does go for a Hyper Potion, but the Encore does last long enough that we're able to finish up the Lanoon without any damage from a max attack Belly Drum Lanoon. Last but not least is Slacking, and if you know anything about this Pokemon, you'd know that it's an absolute nuisance, but you can deal with it pretty handily with any Protect Pokemon, which we have 2, Dustox and also Torkoal. Now I'm going to speed up this footage for you because this is not the most fun thing to watch in the world, just Psybeam, Protect Moonlight, Psybeam, Protect Moonlight, Psybeam, Protect Moonlight, while Slacking eats up his berry, gets Hyper Potioned a bunch. But as long as we have Protect and Moonlight PP, we're not in any damage. And after we do get in danger, I just bring in Torkoal and finish it out with a couple Flamethrowers, earning us the 5th Hoenn Gym Badge. If you have Protect, slacking is absolutely no danger to you whatsoever. Once again, another Nuzlocke tip for the Hoenn games. Bring Dustox to both Brawly and Norman, and you'll have a good time. Right after Norman, we can pick up the Good Rod, which allows us to catch a Corphish and evolve it into Groudon. One of the best water encounters we'll have access to in this game, before we take on the stupidly easy Aqua admin Shelly. A single Mine-In Spark takes care of the Carvanha, as Mightyena comes in, goes for an Intimidate and a Swagger, but luckily we do get a Thunder Wave off, before we can get a safe switch into Groudon, who can drown the Mightyena with 2 Surfs, earning us the victory over Shelly, and also our next eligible encounter, that being Castform, who also comes with a Mystic Water. That'll be pretty nice on Groudon, and also Castform will get some use later on, surprisingly enough. Now, the stupidly easy rival battle versus May comes up, as a safe switch into Groudon allows a single super effective Surf to down the Slugma. Grovyle comes in, and a switch to Golbat allows us to take a quad-resisted Leaf Blade before knocking it off the face of the earth with a Wing Attack. Last but not least is Lombre, and after a soft Fake Out, one more Wing Attack gets the win and earns us the HM4 Fly. Afterwards now, it's time to catch a Kecleon as well as a Tropius, 2 eligible encounters, both are ranked in NU in Generation 3. And we won't be using either of these though, as we're going to be taking on the 6th gym leader, the flying type user, Winona. Now Winona, as always, does lead up with her Swablu, and we lead with Mystic Water, the Castform. I set up the Hail and take a really soft Aerial Ace before a single Ice type Weather Ball downs the Swablu in one hit. In comes Skarmory, so I choose to set up the Sun, which allows me to take less damage from an incoming Steel Wing. Surprisingly enough, we tank that with like 69 HP remaining, nice, before I switch into Torkoal, allows a Sun-boosted Flamethrower to take out the Skarmory after a soft Aerial Ace connects. In comes Pelipper, obviously we can't stay in, but at least his water attacks will be nerfed as we bring in Mine-In. It goes for a Protect, so I choose to Encore it into Protect, meaning that eventually it'll fail its Protects. A lot of Protects in that sentence. But after a war of attrition, eventually a Spark connects and the Pelipper goes down in one hit, leading into her scariest team member, the Dragon Dancing Altaria. Now, I Charm to try to lock it into Dragon Dance, and even at -2, an Earthquake does big damage to Mine-In. So I bring in Golbat, who has Hidden Power Ice. But after 2 Dragon Dances, Altaria is at +0, now at +1 with a 3rd Dragon Dance, and a Bite does not get the flinch, but procs its Berry. It's now at +2 after a 4th Dragon Dance, and after an Aerial Ace does half, a Hidden Power Ice comes mere hit points away from downing the Altaria. A second one does less than half, so I bring in my most physically defensive Pokemon in Torkoal and go for a Body Slam. Now that Altaria is at +6, it's going to stop going for Dragon Dance, and even though we do hit back-to-back Body Slams, it's not enough for the KO as Winona heals up. Altaria does stay paralyzed though, we switch back into Golbat and try to risk it, but unfortunately an Aerial Ace does connect and does just enough to down the Golbat, giving us our 4th death of the run. I bring in Groudon here to try to nail some Vice Grips and see if it'll stay paralyzed, but after a Vice Grip and a Protect, I choose to switch into Overlooked, who comes in on a Paralysis and can outspeed and slash the Altaria, finally getting the victory. In comes Tropius, who's not particularly scary, so I switch into Castform. However, he does go for a Solar Beam, so I switch into my Fire-type Torkoal to tank the Solar Beam. Afterwards, Tropius sets up the Sun, and a single Sun-boosted Flamethrower kills the dinosaur, earning us a very difficult 6th Gym Badge. Before taking on the next few boss battles, I do elect to train up my Groudon with the Macho Brace on Wild Numels, so I can get its special attack up, since most of its best moves in Generation 3 are special attacks, and by giving it 252 special attack EVs, I can make sure that its mediocre special attack stat is up to par. Well, the final May battle is up now, and May tends to be very underwhelming, besides that one battle between Slateport and Mauville. She loses up with Tropius, and after a Magical Leaf crits, I switch into Vigoroth, who takes out the Tropius with 2 more slashes after a weak Sweet Scent connects, not even weak, a useless Sweet Scent connects. After trying to switch, I elect not to, and 2 slashes, one of which crits, takes down the Pelipper. Weak Slugma goes down to a single crit, and after denying to learn counter, Grovyle comes in. I elect to switch into good old Tropius, who resists anything Grovyle can put in it, takes a whole 6 damage from a Leaf Blade, a useless Screech connects, and a Fly and Razor Leaf combo down the Grovyle, beating May for the final time in this run, as she is the most underwhelming and useless rival in the entire series. And that's saying something, because How and Hop both exist. Anyways, after we get to the Magma Hideout, Colorblind Maxie uses the blue orb on the red Pokemon Groudon, and we have to take him on. He lives up with Mightyena, so I lead up with Vigoroth to absorb the Intimidate before switching in to Machoke. After a Scary Face and a Swagger, we break through Confusion, and a +2 Karate Chop eviscerates the Mightyena. In comes Crobat, as we elect to switch over into Mine-In, who's been surprisingly really good in this run. A soft Air Cutter and Wing Attack connect before a Spark does about a little less than half. Maxie gets locked in a super potion loop for a little bit, so we just spam sparks, bring him down to about half before he switches into Camerupt. I like to switch into Kingler Jr. the Groudon, who's newly trained in special attack, and a single quad-effective Surf drowns the camel, leaving just Crobat, who, at half health and paralyzed, goes down to a single Surf. Before the next gym, I catch a Wailmer and quickly evolve it into Wailord at the level cap. Without further ado, it is time to take on the Double Battle Psychic-type users, Tate and Liza. And Double Battles, man, very, very difficult, especially in Nuzlockes. I start out by wanting to go for Rain Stretch as I protect Groudon and go for Rain Dance with Cast Form, which is surprisingly useful in this run. An Earthquake does about a little less than half since it's a spread move in Double Battles, and I tried to go for Rain Boosted Surf, so I switch out Cast Form into Tropius to take any potential attacks that come its way, knowing that it's immune to Earthquake. A Surf almost takes out Claydol, but unfortunately does not do enough even in the rain, which means that Tate and Liza are going to go for Hyper Potion. I switch in good old Bad Kyogre, the Wailord here, to take a Psychic, and it does huge damage due to Wailord's relatively poor special defense. I stay in and try to go for a Rest, hoping that they'll heal or not attack Wailord, but Xatu polishes off the Wailord with a Psychic before it gets to do anything in this run. I go back into Tropius, knowing once again that it is immune to Earthquake, and a Surf does polish off the Xatu, leading into Solrock. Now, I know Solrock likes to set up the sun, so I stay in with Tropius. After Kingler Jr. tanks an Earthquake with yellow HP, a single Surf takes care of the Claydol and does a little bit of damage into Solrock. In comes Lunatone, and after a Growth, I know that in the Sun and Chlorophyll, a Solar Beam will be enough to polish off either Solrock or Lunatone, but I will have to sacrifice Tropius. So after switching into Torkoal, a Solar Beam hammers the Lunatone, getting the one-shot, but unfortunately Tropius does go down to a Sun-boosted Flamethrower. Eventually, after a lot of deciding, I do switch into Kingler Jr. the Groudon, and I go for a Protect on both of them to scout what Solrock is going for. After seeing Solar Beam, I switch into Mystic Water, the Cast Form, who turns into a Fire type and tanks a Solar Beam very well, has a Sun-boosted Flamethrower, does pretty big damage to Solrock. Even after the Citrus Berry procs though, a Flamethrower and Weather Ball combo connect, downing the Solrock and earning us our 7th gym badge, but not without casualties as we lost Bad Kyogre the Wailord and the Tropius. Not particularly useful team members, but it still hurts to lose the only Pokemon that we have that can actually learn Fly. Whatever. It is what it is, right? After taking on the gym, I do pick up the Sunstone from the Moss Deep Space Center, allowing us to evolve Gloom into Blossom, one of the two forms that is allowed in NU, before catching a whole slew of encounters, including a Jigglypuff, which you can immediately evolve with a Moonstone we picked up earlier in the game at Meteor Falls, picking up a Wigglytuff, which can learn a wide array of moves, it being a normal type. Next up is Barbo, which I use on like every Ho in Nuzlocke, I feel like. And after catching one and bringing it up to the level cap, we pick up a Whiscash before taking on the second colorblind leader, being Archie. First off, we lead up with Mightyena, so I lead with my special attacking Balloon with 2 capital L's. After a Swagger, we do hit ourselves with Confusion, which does pretty big damage, meaning that I'm probably going to have to switch. I bring in Who Cares Them a Choke, and after a Takedown and a Swagger, we do unfortunately hit ourselves in Confusion, meaning that we can't stay in because we're probably going to die to a Takedown. In comes Groudon though, and after a Takedown, a single Surf does drown the stupid Wolf, bringing in Crobat. After a Wing Tech does a little bit of damage, we hit an Ice Beam, which brings it into the red. After some reason, I had to go for Protect instead of just going for the KO, as Archie uses 2 Super Potions in a row, meaning that Crobat hangs on with the Sliver again, but a Wing Attack does not kill, and one more Ice Beam polishes off the bat, leading into Sharpedo. I switch in What, who's back on the team after a long time, and a Bullet Seed actually does pretty good damage, getting a 3-hit. Still, I'm not safe to stay in, so we don't outspeed, meaning that I switch into Whiscash. After going for an Earthquake, though, we do unfortunately get Swaggered, but we break through, and a +2 Earthquake takes out the Sharpedo, earning us the victory over Team Aqua's Archie. Once again, he is colorblind and uses the red orb on the blue Pokemon, meaning, oh no, everything is sunny and rainy and everything, and we have to go enlist Rayquaza's help. I do enjoy this part of the game, though, as it is pretty fun, just seeing like the alternating sun and the rain over and over again. And in the Cave of Origin, we do catch one of our final eligible encounters, that being Sableye, who kind of sucks, but he has no weaknesses, so I can't complain. After we see Kyogre and Groudon arguing against Eutopolis, Rayquaza comes through the sky, and one of the best cutscenes on the GPA screams at them to go away, and they're like, "Thur, yes, Thur, we will go away, Thur." After all that boils over, we can take on the 8th and final gym leader, the Water-type user, Juan. First off is Love Disc, and after we taught Other Thunderbolt by TM, he eviscerates the heart-shaped fish in one hit. In comes the Ground-type Whiscash, so I do elect to make a switch into What the Blossom. Unfortunately, it does go for Amnesia and Rain Dance here, but a pretty good Bullet Seed manages to get 4 hits, one of which being a critical hit, which ignores the defense buffs and takes down the Whiscash. In comes Celio, though, and an Aurora Beam does not get the attack drop after we switch into Groudon. A Protect revealed is going for a Water Pulse, so I do elect to switch into Who Cares the Machoke. Unfortunately, the Water Pulse does pretty big damage, and we miss a Cross Chop. I like to stay in, though, and Aurora Beam does not get the KO, but it does get the attack drop, and Karate Chop does, like, absolutely nothing. I switch back to Minun, though, who takes the hit pretty well, and a single Thunderbolt does finish off the Celio. Next up is Groudon, though, who we can one-shot with Thunderbolt, and we do, which just leaves his final, very annoying Resto Chesto double-team Kingdra. Ice Beam does a little bit of damage, and we get off a Paralysis, as Kingdra stays fully paralyzed like 2 turns in a row before going for a double team, but fortunately we outspeed and connect through the double team for the KO, as other than Minun has been an absolute beast in this run, as he takes out another gym leader, earning us our 8th and final gym badge. For the Elite Four, it's Wally time, as we lead off with our Ice Beaming Wigglytuff. We can't get the KO, but we do get the freeze, but unfortunately for us, Wally's packing full restore, so second Ice Beam also doesn't get the KO, but a follow-up Body Slam does, leading into Delcatty. Now, Delcatty gambles on a 55% accurate Sing and does unfortunately hit it, but Delcatty kind of sucks, so anything we switch into will be perfectly fine. After it gets Tri-Attack off an assist, if for some reason goes for a resisted Feint Attack. And even after we do get a Infatuation, we don't actually end up getting fully infatuated, so a Karate Chop finishes it off, leading into Gardevoir. Gardevoir does go for a Future Sight here, but it can't go for Psychic on our Dark-type Groudon, so after a Surf and Strength combo, it switches into Roselia. After the Future Sight, though, we do take out the Roselia with an Ice Beam, which brings in Magneton, but we're perfectly safe to switch into Whiscash, be immune to a Thunderbolt, and down the pile of Magnets with an Earthquake, leading into Gardevoir. Future does pretty big damage, as well as the follow-up Psychic, but we managed to hang on and hit a couple Earthquakes in its face, despite falling down to 23 HP. Afterwards, though, we switch into Kingler Jr., and a single Ice Beam hits through the double team, downing the Gardevoir, earning us the win over Wally and the right to take on the Elite Four. After pre-poisoning my Machoke on a Wild Tentacool, it's time to look over the team one last time. Can our squad of competitive rejects defeat the Hoenn Elite Four? Without further ado, after we look over them one last time, let's find out. First up is the Dark-type user Sidney. We live with Machoke to absorb the Intimidate before switching into Balloon and back into Machoke on a Sand Attack. Unfortunately, due to the Sand Attack, now we're not hitting our attacks, as he keeps piling up more and more Sand Attack, meaning our accuracy gets lower and lower, but eventually we hit a Gust-boosted Facade for the one-shot. In comes Shiftry, so he switched to Torkoal after a double team, 2 of them at that. We managed to hit a Flamethrower still, and eviscerate the Grass type in one single hit, leading into Absol. In comes Whiscash, though, on the switch, and after a little bit of deliberation, after a Swords Dance, though, we are free to outspeed and 2-shot the dog with 2 Surfs, leading into Cacturn. Now, we could probably outspeed an Ice Beam here, but just to be safe, I do elect to switch back into Torkoal. Cotton Spore is meaningless due to our White Smoke ability, and one single Flamethrower downs the Cactus, leading into his final team member, Groudon. But other than Minun being the absolute beast she is, eviscerates the Crab, earning us a very easy first Elite Four battle. Next up is Phoebe, the Ghost-type user, who we don't have as good of a matchup into. I lead off with No Drought the Torkoal, trying to see how much damage we can do into the Dusclops, knowing we can get a free defense boost thanks to always going for Protect on the first turn. I go for Protect to scout out, see if that's going for Confuse Ray, so I decided to test my luck and drill it with a Flamethrower for about half. After a second Protect, we do hit ourselves in Confusion, but after a third Protect fails, we do not hit ourselves in Confusion and take down the Ghost with a second Flamethrower. In comes the second Dusclops, the more offensive of the two, I believe, before we switch to Whiscash, allows us to hit it with a Surf. Shadow Ball does a little bit of damage, so I stay in and go for Ice Beam to keep it out of healing range, but the Citrus Berry procs, bringing it back above half. I switch into Balloon, which is a normal type and is obviously immune to the Ghost type attack, so after a soft Earthquake and a full restore, we are free to nail the Ghost with a barrage of attacks. First a Shadow Ball lowers its Spadef and a couple Ice Beams. Eventually does get the job done, leading into her third team member, that being Banette, one of her 2 Banettes. Feint Attack doesn't do much, so I go to sleep with the rest. And after a barrage of Feint Attacks, we do eventually wake up. Banette's not doing a whole lot of damage thanks to our pretty solid Spadef and HP. And after we wake up, obviously, a couple super effective Shadow Balls down the Ghost, leading into her Sableye. Now, Sableye does have a low base stat total, but it also doesn't have any weaknesses, and it also has access to the super annoying Double Team, which the Hoenn games absolutely love giving to AI trainers. Nothing I love more than luck-based evasion strategy. We do hit a Shadow Ball, but we do miss an Ice Beam. A Feint Attack doesn't do much, the Thunderbolt also misses. Another Feint Attack does not crit this time, but we keep on missing attacks before finally hitting a Shadow Ball. Now that we're at low HP, I'm forced to risk a crit, but we do luckily not get crit and are able to get off a rest, bringing us back to full HP. We bring in Groudon, who does have Aerial Ace, which cannot miss, and after 2 of those more, we would eventually be able to get the job done. Unfortunately, Phoebe has access to full restore, so I go for Protect to see what it's going for. Seeing it's going for Feint Attack, I try to stay in, but since it has access to Nightshade, we do get in danger. Fortunately, we do outspeed, and one more Aerialist gets the job done, leading into Banette for a second and final of the two. We Thunder Wave it before deliberating on what to do, before choosing to go for a Thunderbolt. Shadow Ball does not get the KO, and since we outspeed, one more Thunderbolt downs the Ghost, giving us another deathless victory over an Elite Four member and earning us the right to take on Glacia. Glacia always tends to be really annoying thanks to the fact that she always sets up Hail, which adds an extra variable to the fight, giving your Pokemon chip, which is why I decided to bring in Torkoal for us to set up a sunny day. After it just fails an Encore since we switched, a Thunderbolt does not quite get enough for the KO, allowing it to set up Hail once again. But at least Glacia does waste a full restore on one of her weaker Pokemon. A second Thunderbolt also does not get the range we need, meaning one more finally gets the KO on the stupid Seal, leading into Glalie. Now, Glalie does kind of suck. It's only base 80 in every stat, but for the main story, it's not bad, as it hits an Icy Wind and does lower our speed. Fortunately, we do lock it into Light Screen, meaning we're allowed to get a free switch into Torkoal, giving us a perfect opportunity to set up the Sun, and even through the Light Screen, we should do pretty good damage with a Sun-boosted Flamethrower. After a soft Crunch hits, we do almost 2/3 with a Flamethrower, for a second Crunch leaves us in the green, and one more Flamethrower cleans up the Ice Ball, leading into the Water and Ice-type Wall Rain. A switch into Kingler Jr. allows us to hit a few Aerial Aces for chip, knowing that we can tank a few Ice Beams from this thing. Once we get in range, though, we do switch into Minun, who takes a Surf with 17 HP and cleans up the Wall Rain with a super effective Thunderbolt. Fortunately, since Hail's not up, we don't get chipped by it, as we bring in Macho, who goes for a Guts Boosted Facade, which does not quite get the KO. Unfortunately, the chip is racking up between Poison and Hail, meaning that even though a second Facade doesn't get the KO, the Poison and the Hail leaves it really close. Poison brings us down to 33, Hail down to 13, meaning we do survive, and we can bring in Torkoal. Despite the Hail, Ice Beam doesn't do much, and a Flamethrower does big damage into the Glalie, leaving it with a tick of HP. Fortunately, Whiscash is at full, and after 2 Ice Beams do not crit, one more Surf downs the Ice Ball, earning us another Deathless Elite Four battle, and earning us the right to take on the 4th and final member, the Dragon user, Drake. Now, Drake can be difficult unless you have access to Ice Beam. Unfortunately, since Shelgon always does go for Protect on the first turn, I don't have a boosting move to use, meaning I just fire off a useless Ice Beam into it. We don't get the range, we do get the freeze, meaning that Drake fortunately burns a full restore early, and the second one does get the range, downing the middle evolved Dragon type. In comes Altaria, who goes for a useless Dragon Dance before getting cleaned up by an Ice Beam, leading into Kingdra. Now, Kingdra can be really annoying here with access to Smoke Screen and Double Team. It does set up 2 Dragon Dances. It looks like Earthquake will be a 3-shot, and unfortunately, it does get off a Smoke Screen into us. We do take out the Kingdra, but hey, you'll see what Smoke Screen can do to us next. We elect not to learn Fissure, as Oko moves are stupid, and in comes Flygon. Earthquake connects, we miss an Ice Beam. Earthquake connects, we miss an Ice Beam. Thanks so much, Kingdra. We can bring in Kingler Jr., who manages to take a Dragon Breath and an Earthquake and eviscerate the Flygon in one hit with a quad effective Ice Beam, but nothing we have can outspeed the Salamence, meaning we're going to need to sacrifice, and I elect to go with Balloon at the Wigglytuff. As you can see, we're not the speediest team in the world, which is why, hey, we're all an NU or PU, right? Wigglytuff comes in and Dragonflight does about half, meaning if we get a low roll, we can survive, and we survive with a 1 HP, allowing a quad effective Ice Beam to down the Salamence. Hey, even though you're not a Fairy-type Balloon, you still own dragons. And hey, we have a full team heading into the champion battle with Wallace, which boosts our odds phenomenally. The run all comes down to this, our Gen 3 competitive rejects versus the champion of Hoenn. Let's go! First off is a Wailord, who we lead with the Minun. I actually did not want to crit here because I wanted to waste Hyper Potions, but unfortunately we do crit. In comes Gyarados because it sees the kill with Earthquake, but obviously a quad effective Thunderbolt downs the Dragon, leading into Whiscash. Other has pulled way more than her weight in this run, but unfortunately, we do need a sacrifice, and now it's Balloon's turn to actually go down to the Whiscash. This guarantees a free switch into our own Whiscash, which is just better. It probably has EVs and better IVs. We can outspeed and do slightly more damage to his Whiscash, allowing us to tank his hits relatively effectively, and finish it off with 3 Surfs, leading into Ludicolo. Now, unfortunately, we gotta go down here. We hit an Ice Beam for Chip, get a Clutch Freeze, but unfortunately does immediately thaw out. Still, the Chip might come in handy, as even though it double teams, we have Aerialist, which can't miss. Unfortunately, Giga Drain does do really big damage, so I do have to switch out into Torkoal. He goes for a full restore instead of Giga Drain, unfortunately, but since he goes for a double team, I can set up the Sun, meaning his Surf will do less damage, allowing us to tank 2 Surfs, meaning if we hit this next Flamethrower, thanks to the burn, we will get the KO. We hang on with 8 HP and one more Flamethrower, thankfully downs the Ludicolo, leading into Tentacruel. Now, unfortunately, no Drought's job is done, and he goes down to an Ice Beam, bringing in Other. Wallace misses a Toxic, thankfully, and we get a Clutch Para, allowing us to outspeed and take down the Tentacruel with one more Thunderbolt. In comes Milotic. After taking Surf with 70 HP, we heal up with a Citrus Berry and drill him with a Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt does a little less than half, meaning that it would be a 3-shot from here as he goes for Recover. We go for a second Thunderbolt, and a Surf does not quite get the KO as a Citrus Berry procs, meaning that we get a free switch here into Who Cares thanks to a Paralysis. Fortunately, we hit a Facade, but it does not quite get the KO, thanks to Marvel Scale. But after Marvel Scale is not active, Facade does a huge chunk of damage, meaning we tank a Surf with 6 HP and one more Facade, makes us the champion of Hoenn. Despite the deaths in this final battle, our competitive rejects have made it to the Hall of Fame. As Who Cares the Machoke, Other the Minun, and Kingler Jr. the Groudon survived to the end. Did we have 9 deaths? Yep, the exact same as the Johto run in Crystal, but hey, we are the champion of Hoenn and nothing will ever take that away from our NU and PU Pokemon. This one was super fun as it really shows that in competitive, you have different values for how good Pokemon can be, obviously. And in the main story, when you have access to EVs and badge boosts, especially in Gens 1 through 3, you have a really good advantage over the opponent, meaning that even if your Pokemon aren't the best, those 10% boosts from the badge boost as well as having EVs can make rather mediocre Pokemon into really good attackers, Groudon being an example. It has a very pedestrian base 90 special attack, but with Tate Liza's badge boost and also max special attack EVs, he became a monster with Surf and Ice Beam, so... You know, don't judge a book by its cover. In the main story, you can pretty much use whatever Pokemon you want, and I'll be really excited to try this this tactic out here in other gens. As power creep becomes a thing in the future gens, who knows what kind of Pokemon we'll get access to in NU. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.